The 7th episode of Dexter Resurrection is called Course Correction. We open up on our favorite serial killers hanging out at Prater's private castle. Prater tells them that Mia kicked the bucket and they all make a toast in her honor, saying that Lady Vengeance left them far too soon. All the while, Dexter is sizing up the Gemini killer. Then we cut to Elsa and Harrison, who are talking in a park, and Dante is kicking a soccer ball. Elsa tells Harrison that the stuff with her landlord is getting worse. Harrison tells Elsa that stuff with his dad is going better, and that he's thinking about going back to school for criminology. Cut back to the castle, and Prater is treating them to a bunch of fancy food, and Dexter finally decides to drop the whole vegan thing so that he can eat meat again. I don't blame him. Finally, it's Dexter's turn to show and tell. I was wondering if they were going to get back to that, because I know Prater mentioned that in like episode 4, but now Dexter has to figure out how he's going to do all that while pretending to be Red. Rapunzel brought something for show and tell too, and it's really creepy. Treated to a POV video of him taking out his most recent victim. So Dexter goes to another room and starts to prepare his presentation. He starts talking to the mirror, and then he starts talking to Harry. And when I was watching this scene, I thought it was kind of strange, because if I was in a billionaire's castle, I would be just assuming that there are cameras everywhere. Like I would just assume that eyes were always watching me, because like you never know with billionaires. I don't know, like rich people, I don't know what they do. I would not be talking to Harry. Like I would not be talking to my dead dad in that castle. Like I almost half assume that like he's got some kind of like surveillance camera looking at him. He does have serial killers just hanging out in his castle. So it wouldn't be like crazy for him to just put cameras everywhere. I'm just saying, maybe don't talk to your dead dad in a billionaire's castle. Dexter kind of confronts his ghost dad here about how he killed himself, and I think about this a lot because we never actually see Harry die. We hear later that like he had a heart attack, and then in season 2, it's revealed. There's this big reveal with Dokes saying that they actually covered that up. And it was actually suicide. But we never see that. And so I wonder if we're going to kind of get more information about that. Like, it feels so suspicious. Like, I wonder if there were more, like, weird circumstances around it, just because it seems so shady, and it seems so, like, vague. And I wonder about it a lot. And it makes me think that either Harry is still alive or there was some really suspicious stuff around his death. But I don't know. Time will tell. Either way, Dexter is under the impression that Harry couldn't live with what he did to Dexter, like him creating this serial killer, essentially. Or he blames himself for the way Dexter is. Then Charlie comes in and tells him it's time for him to share. So Dexter kind of puts on a little song and dance about how you're a car driver, but he talks about his dark passenger. He says feeding his dark passenger gives him satisfaction, but it also gives him a lot of sadness once that's over, because once it's over, he has to put the mask on and be around people again and continue to pretend. While he's talking about this identity crisis, though, Charlie walks in, and it kind of seems like she empathizes with him in this, or at least relates to what he's saying, which makes me wonder about a lot of things. Is Charlie also a killer? Or can she just relate because we can all kind of relate to putting a mask on in front of everyone else and hiding our true selves? So it could be something as simple as that. There's a lot of mystery around Charlie that I'd like to get to the bottom of at some point. So then we cut back to Batista, and he's still bitching about how he thinks Dexter is the Bay Harbor Butcher, which he is. And more so, he's pushing the fact that Mia didn't kill herself and that there was an inside thing, which is also true. Cut back to the castle, and Prater felt very moved by what Dexter said, and he wants to speak with him privately and also be very vulnerable with him. And this is when we finally get some more information about Prater, which I've been dying for. We get more information about Prater's origin story and like why he's so interested in serial killers, at least according to him. In the 60 Minutes interview from a couple episodes ago, he talked about how his parents died in a drunk driver accident. Here he goes more into that story in more detail. Prater tells Dexter that after his parents were killed, he would go back and visit the guy that killed them. He says that he wrote a letter to his parents' killer, and that killer wrote back to him. And the killer basically said that you're not special and that there wasn't really a reason for what he did. Like, it's just is what it is. But the point is that he had no remorse. And he said what he did had nothing to do with him or his parents. Prater says he goes back to visit this guy because he wants to know the details and he wants to know what was going through his head and what he was thinking. He also wanted to know why he spared him. He says they were both prisoners of the world's morality. So he kept going back, and he was his only visitor during his incarceration up until he died. At some point during these visits, he shared his story with him, and Prater felt a connection to him. And he said knowing what he was thinking while he killed them gave him power, and that he was never going to be that scared little boy again. After he died, he started collecting serial killers and their trophies. So then we cut back to Batista, who's meeting Blessing for the first time, and he's kind of getting some information about Dexter. Cut back to Dexter at the castle, and he is kind of grilling the Gemini killer, being like, hey, I know your secret. And right here, he's trying to rattle him a bit, and he does a pretty good job at doing that. Just right out looks at him and says, "I killed your brother. Did you feel anything when I stabbed him?" There's that theory about how twins can feel each other's pain. "Did you feel anything last night around 8 p.m. when I stabbed your brother?" And so basically what he's doing here is he's goading him into attacking him. And Gemini breaks a wine glass and slices his arm. In what appears to be self-defense, Dexter strikes back and kills him because he needed a reason to kill him, which is probably better than doing it in secret at this point since everybody's being picked off. When everybody asks what happened, Dexter just tells him that he was the one that killed Lowell and that he was planning on killing everybody here, pinning Lowell's murder on him, essentially. Before all this happens, though, he does confide in him about his brother Brian Moser. He kind of envies that he has somebody like a brother who he can be himself around and someone who can be there with him while he is himself and while he indulges his dark passenger. But Charlie's not buying this. She says that picking people off one by one isn't his MO because he always kills in pairs. Also, after Dexter kills him, he stuffs a piece of the wine glass with his blood in his pocket. And then Charlie patches up Dexter's arm, and then we cut to Harrison, who's visiting a college. Collings College? That's a stupid name. Harrison is waiting to go on a college tour, but he's waiting for Dexter because Dexter texted him and told him that he would go with him. A blonde girl comes up and starts flirting with him. Her name is Gigi. She's the tour guide. Then we cut back to Dexter, who's stepping off the helicopter, and he's on his way to the college tour. But before he leaves, Prater invites him to another meal. And these people have a lot of dinners, don't they? It's kind of interesting. I wonder how many years they've been doing this. So then we cut back to the college tour, and at the end of the tour, there's a forensics psychology class that they're going to audit. Guess who's teaching the forensic psychology class? None other than Detective Wallace. Seriously, how small is this city? I'm so baffled by how guilty Harrison always looks every time he sees her. He's just like, ugh. Like, at least try to have a straight face. You know, you gotta practice your I'm innocent face, dude. Anyway, he has a seat, and once the class starts, I start to get giddy because I realize that what they're doing is they're going to talk about the New York Ripper, because why else would she be there? And I know the show is going to give us more insight on the New York Ripper, so I'm like, oh, thank fucking God we get to finally find out more about the New York Ripper. We find out that the New York Ripper used to taunt his victims' families, which is a pretty messed up thing to do. They play like audio files of him, of like his calls when he's calling the victims. They don't sound like Blessing, that's for sure, but it also could be an audio recorder. It could be like a voice changer thing, like Scream, you know, like a Ghostface's voice changer. She states that the New York Ripper's kills stopped years ago, but his crimes continue to cause harm. And then Dexter shows up. She states that the New York Ripper does not kill anymore, but he continues to taunt the families of the victims. That's interesting. Why would a serial killer stop killing, but then keep taunting? Has that ever happened in history? Like in real life? I'm not sure. I don't think so. Then we get this scene where Wallace kind of grills the two of them, like, sort of, where it's like on the surface it seems like it's really normal like conversation, but like there's an undertone of I know who you are, I know what you did, I'm still suspicious of you, you know. And then she tells him that Batista's been giving them advice about the Bay Harbor Butcher and about, you know, Batista's been talking to them about his theories about the case. Of course, Dexter says backhanded comments about how Batista isn't the same after Dokes was proven to be the Bay Harbor Butcher, basically lowering Batista's credibility, or attempting to. Then we get the most interesting line of the whole episode, in my opinion, or the most interesting scene. Before he leaves, Dexter tells Wallace that the spatter indicates that what the killer used was not a crowbar, but actually something with a handle and a point at the end and something that can be swung. That's what he's saying as a previous professional blood spatter analysis. And then he just gives a shrug and then leaves. That is the most interesting part of this episode, because there is one person that we know of that has used a hook like that in the old Dexter TV series. Now, I'm not the first person to point this out, but there is a theory that the New York Ripper is in fact Jonah Mitchell, Arthur Mitchell's oldest son. I don't hate that theory. Last episode, I thought it could be Blessing because of the way he was acting and the stuff with his mom, and it could still be Blessing, but the audio recordings we heard didn't sound like Blessing. But again, he could have been using a voice changer, so it could still be Blessing. But this information about the hook and everything, that really makes me think of Jonah. Again, it's anyone's game still. Jonah is still alive as far as we know. And this show is all about fatherhood, right? Fatherhood is a main theme in Dexter Resurrection. And the whole Dexter TV series, of course, the whole Dexter franchise, fatherhood has been a main theme, but it's heavier in this show in particular. It kind of fits. It fits with the fatherhood theme, and it fits with Trinity being very central. I'm not fully convinced it's either of these people, though, to be honest. Like, there's cases to be made for both of them, but I'm also leaning towards Charlie. I think because there's a lot of mystery around Charlie as well. I don't know. There's so many things we don't know. Like maybe the New York Ripper died at some point, and now someone else is taunting them. Like that voice could be Prater too. Maybe Prater's using a voice changer. How did he get the New York Ripper's weapon? Was it given to him, or did he buy it from someone? If he bought it from someone, then the police would know what his weapon was. But remember, they thought it was a crowbar, but it was something with a hook. It means that Prater probably got that weapon from the New York Ripper himself, right? And if that's true, what happened to the New York Ripper? Did he die? Is Prater the one calling these victims? Is that part of it? So many questions. My big candidates for New York Ripper, though, are Blessing, Jonah Mitchell, and Charlie. Those are my top 3 candidates for the New York Ripper, but honestly, it could be anybody. It could be a complete unknown. Very interested, though. That was the most interesting thing because it made me think of Jonah Mitchell. And then I like this scene because while they're walking away, Dexter talks to Harrison about how he likes that he has this strong moral compass. You know, he likes that Harrison has this longing to be a cop. You know, that's very Morgan, you know, like all the Morgans have traditionally wanted to be in law enforcement. Harry Morgan, Dexter, and Deb, you know, they were all in law enforcement in some form. But then he says that it was him that inspired him. It was his father, Dexter. Anyway, then he flirts a little bit more with blonde chick, Gigi, and Dexter buys a $40 hat at the gift shop. Dexter's talking to Harry in the car while Harrison is getting Gigi's number, and Harry says, "I wish I could be at his graduation," and Dexter says, "Well, you will be, right?" And of course he's talking about, you know, the ghost of Harry will be watching, but what if actual Harry shows up? I know I keep saying that, but like that'd be kind of nuts if like actual Harry shows up at Harrison's graduation. I don't know. Make it happen, Paramount. So Harrison asks Dexter, shouldn't you be worried about Batista talking to the cops? And Dexter says, no, I'm not really worried because they already have a fall person for Ryan Foster's murder. The cops aren't going to make their lives more difficult no matter how hard Batista pushes. Then we see Dexter take out the glass, remember, that he killed the Gemini killer with, and he takes the blood off and makes a little trophy because Dexter's got to have his trophies. I'm a little bit surprised Prater or Charlie didn't notice that, but I guess he was pretty slick about it. Then he goes upstairs and sees Batista and offers to take him home. And they have a very chilling ride home. And this is so weird because like I'm rewatching the old Dexter show again. And it's weird to like see how buddy they are then, and to see them be like at odds with each other in this show is very kind of unsettling. Anyway, Dexter threatens him and tells him to stay away from him and stay away from his house and stay away from his family and especially stay away from Harrison. And Batista's like, I'm still going to get you, buddy. And if I am who you say I am, then it's probably not going to end well for you. And he kicks him out. But just before he kicks him out, Batista hides a tracker in his car. And the episode ends. I feel like there has not been a boring episode of this show yet so far. Do you guys feel the same way? Because I am so entertained. And I am so, like, my mind is just... my mind is fixated on all these little mysteries, and I am so very interested in what's going to happen next, particularly with Prater and the stuff with the New York Ripper. Who do you think is the New York Ripper? Because like I said, I have like 3 candidates in my head, but it honestly could be anybody. Another thing, do you think Mia is actually dead? All we have is that one scene where Charlie shows up and just hands that guy a thing of money, and then he pronounces her dead later. No dialogue was exchanged there, so we don't really know. Like, maybe they faked her death. But then if they faked her death, then why would Prater tell the rest of the serial killers that she's dead if he faked her death? Oh, there's none left. I'm still not ruling it out, because I think it's still a possibility that she could be alive. But what do you guys think? Who do you think's the New York Ripper, and what do you think's going to happen? And what do you think's up with Charlie? Like, we don't know anything about Charlie. I'm very interested to know more about Charlie. Let me know your theories in the comments section below, and I'll catch you guys next week.